Chapter 1. The river that should have taken him, the night howled like a wounded beast. And somewhere beneath that roar, the river carried secrets meant to stay drowned. Rain lashed through the pine forest, slicing the air like whips of ice. The moon was hidden, and the world smelled of iron, storm, and sorrow. I shouldn't have been out there. Omegas like me, we didn't wander after dusk, not since the Alpha's decree. But hunger was stronger than fear, and I needed herbs for the fever that had been burning through my only friend, a sick old she-wolf who had once shielded me when no one else dared. So I crept toward the riverbank, my torn shawl clinging to my shoulders, every breath a white ghost in the dark. Then, a sound, a crash, a low guttural growl swallowed by the current. Something, or someone, was in the water. My feet froze, half buried in mud, heart pounding so loud I thought the storm itself might hush to listen. Then the scent hit me, raw, potent, unmistakable. Wolf, but not just any wolf. An alpha, I should have run. The law of the pack was clear. An omega caught near an alpha without permission could be punished, or worse. But there was something in that scent, buried under blood and river water. Something familiar. I took one trembling step closer. The flash of lightning tore across the sky, and that's when I saw him. A massive wolf, fur matted with blood, dragged by the current. His side was torn open, his breath shallow, his claws scraping at the rocks as if refusing to surrender. Without thinking, I plunged into the freezing water. The current bit into me like teeth, dragging me down, but I fought, reaching for the limp body before it was swallowed by darkness. My hands locked around thick fur slick with blood, and I screamed through the storm as I pulled with everything I had left. When I finally reached the bank, I collapsed beside him. Coughing river water, shivering violently, the wolf lay still, barely breathing. Up close, his scent hit deeper. Wild forest, dark power, dominance. But there was something else. Something that made my heart twist. Fate. I pressed my trembling hand to his wound. "Stay with me. Please," I whispered. "Don't die on me." The storm answered with thunder. He stirred. Barely. His eyelids fluttered, revealing eyes like molten silver, glowing faintly even through pain. Those eyes. My heart stopped. I knew them. The alpha who had cast me out. The one who had called me weak. The one who had looked me in the eye 3 years ago and said, "You're not fit to be anyone's mate, Omega. King Kale, the man who had destroyed me. The man whose mark still burned on my soul. And the man now bleeding at my feet." I stumbled back, disbelief choking me. Of all wolves to save, why him? The thunder rolled again, as if mocking the cruel trick of fate. He tried to lift his head, teeth bared weakly. "You," he rasped, voice rough as gravel, blood staining his lips. "You should have left me." A bitter laugh escaped me, sharp and broken. "You think I didn't try?" His body trembled, pain seizing him. I watched him fade, torn between fury and something deeper I couldn't name. I should have walked away. Let the river finish what destiny started, but I couldn't. Because once, before rejection, before exile, I had loved him more than my own breath, and maybe that love hadn't died completely. Maybe it had just been buried beneath years of pain. I leaned over him, whispering, "Don't you dare die, Kale. Not like this." His lips parted, barely a whisper. Still, disobeying orders. Then his eyes rolled back, and his body went limp. The rain softened. The forest held its breath. And there, under the bleeding sky, I realized I wasn't saving a wolf. I was saving the ghost of everything I'd once been, but I didn't know that by dragging him from that river, I had just reignited a curse neither of us could escape. Chapter 2. The Alpha Who Forgot to Die. The forest held its breath like it feared waking a god. I dragged him through the dripping pines, one staggering step at a time, my arms screaming, my lungs burning, my heart beating in a rhythm I hadn't felt in years. Live, live, live. King Kale, the alpha who had thrown me to the edges of the map, was dead weight, and iron will tangled into flesh. He should have died in that river. But he didn't. He was stubborn even in silence, the kind of stubbornness that keeps a heart beating out of spite. Lightning faded to a whisper of rain. I took the long path, the one the patrols never used because the brambles there had a way of remembering faces and keeping score. The scent of wolfsbane and silver drifted from the gash along his ribs, and my stomach turned to stone. Silver should have shredded his ability to heal. Wolfsbane should have set his blood on fire. Whoever struck him hadn't wanted a fight. They'd wanted a funeral. I hauled him toward the old mill, a ruin of stone and shadow tucked against the ravine, half swallowed by fern and ivy. The door resisted me with a groan, then yielded like a tired animal. Inside, the air was damp and cold, the dust smelling of wet grain and ghosts. I eased him down, pressed my palm to his neck, and felt it. The thread of pulse, stubborn and thin as a spider's line. But there. Don't make me regret this, I whispered, and it shook loose a laugh that sounded too much like a sob. A few coals still slept in the old iron stove. I coaxed them to life, the tiny orange glow shivering against the walls like a frightened star. I found a cracked basin, filled it with river water, and tossed in a pinch of dried feverfew and yarrow from my pouch. The scent lifted, bitter and clean, a knife through the rot of storm air. I turned back to him and my hand stalled. The wound carved across his ribs had gone black around the edges where silver had kissed bone. Blood seeped slow and reluctant, like the body was done giving. I tore strips from my ruined shawl, soaked them in the herb water, and pressed them to the wound. He growled, a low, broken sound, but didn't wake. That growl pulled at something I didn't want to look at. A memory. A night like this, years ago, when I had stood in his hall with my hands empty and my soul burning, and he had looked at me, looked through me, and said no. No to fate. No to me. No to the bond that sang in my bones. I should have hated him enough to walk away tonight. But the truth was uglier. The bond never died. It only rearranged itself into a dull ache that made breathing a kind of slow punishment. I forced my hands steady. "Hold on," I murmured. "If you let go now, you'll leave me with the question of whether I should have saved you. Don't do that to me. Not again." His eyes flickered open, a slit of molten silver in the dark. He didn't shift. He didn't have the strength. He just stared at me the way storms stare at the horizon before they decide whether to break it. "Why?" he rasped. The word caught me like a thorn. "Because I don't leave things drowning," I said, "even if they once threw me to the deep." The corner of his mouth twitched. Pain, not humor. "Always am stubborn. You would know," I said, and my voice cracked. He tried to move. The wound flared. He snarled through his teeth, a flash of the alpha beneath the ruin. I pressed a hand to his chest and he stopped. Not because I had any right to command him, but because I think he remembered for 1 second what it was like when we didn't have to speak to be heard. The herbal heat seeped into his skin. The black along the wound's edge shivered and retreated by the smallest margin. I didn't smile. Too soon, too fragile. The rain softened outside into 1,000 tiny prayers. "Who did this?" I asked. His eyes slid to the ceiling rafters. "Not the river," he said, voice soft as a blade. "The river was the mercy." A cold rush bit the back of my neck. Mercy meant intention. Intention meant the wound wasn't an accident. Wolves didn't fall into rivers like this. Wolves were pushed. Silver wolfsbane mix, I said. "You were hunted." He said nothing. That silence had shape. It had names he wouldn't give me yet. I heated a knife in the stove until it glowed dull red. The smell of iron rose like a warning. My stomach turned. I took a breath that scraped the air raw. "This will hurt," I said. "You won't like me for it." He turned his head toward me again, that silver gaze catching firelight. "I never liked you," he whispered. And then after a heartbeat that hurt, he added, "That was the problem." The sound I made wasn't quite a laugh. "Good," I said tightly. "Hate will keep you awake." I pressed the blade to the edge of the wound. He roared, the sound rattling the bones of the mill, and his claws gouged the stone. Heat and smoke and blood merged into a single red scream. I worked fast, burning out the blackened silver kiss that clung like rot, my other hand steadying his ribs, my cheek splattered with what the river had failed to keep. The air filled with the scent of seared flesh and bitter herbs and rain-soaked fur. The Alpha King didn't beg. He didn't break. He swallowed the hurt like he'd taught me to swallow silence. When I pulled the blade away, he was shaking, sweat and river water and blood turning his fur into a dark tangle. He panted, teeth bared, and for a second the old terror of alphas rose in me, the terror every Omega is trained to carry. But it passed. He wasn't a monster. He was a man who had forgotten how to bleed in front of anyone. Again, he forced out. I stared. No. Again. You'll go into shock. Then, he said, and his eyes held mine with a command that had once felt like a home. Keep me here. Something broke in me. Something soft and useless. The kind of softness that had gotten me thrown out of his world. I pressed the heated blade again. He roared again, and this time the sound wasn't just pain. It was grief. It was the kind that scrapes your insides clean and leaves only the clear cold of what matters. I burned until the edges were clean. I burned until the silver stink lifted. I burned until his body stopped trying to crawl away from itself. When it was done, I wrapped the wound in clean strips, my fingers shaking so hard the knots were ugly. He lay still, breath sawing, eyes glassy. I wiped my hands and looked down at them like they belonged to a stranger. Sleep, I said, not because I was gentle, but because my voice had no other trick left. He shifted then. Not fully, only enough for Bones to remember how to be human. The fur receded like night dragged back by a cruel dawn, leaving a man in its place, scarred and breathtaking and terrible. The old scars crawled like pale lightning over his chest. The new one I had made burned across them like fresh thunder. His face, God's, it had changed and it hadn't. The mouth still shaped like defiance, the jaw still carved from winter, but the eyes, when they opened fully, held something I had never seen before. Fear. Not of me. Of loss. I should have died, he said quietly. You almost did, I answered, and my throat closed around the truth. You almost left me with nothing but your choices. I didn't want that. He studied me the way kings study maps of land they pretend they don't already own. What did I leave you with instead? Questions, I said, and a wound time didn't cauterize half as clean as that one. The corner of his mouth did that almost smile again. You're different. So are you, I said. Your enemies have learned how to aim. The wind pushed against the door like a hand. The mill creaked. Somewhere in the drip of rainwater and the hiss of cooling metal, a new sound bloomed. Soft, rhythmic. Wrong, I went cold all over. Footsteps, slow, careful, learning the language of the dark. I crossed to the door and smothered the fire until the room fell into quiet shadow. My eyes adjusted. The world resolved into edges. The hair on my arms lifted. The footsteps paused just outside the wall of ivy. Whoever it was had followed the drag marks I couldn't disguise. Clever. Patient. Not a scout. A closer. Kale's hand closed around my wrist. His skin was hot, fever licking up the ladder of his veins. If I shift now, he breathed, I tear it open again. Then don't, I said. Let me be the teeth you can't use. His grip tightened, not to stop me, to anchor me. He released. I slid to the side of the door, knife in one hand, a whisper of yarrow crushed under my thumb in the other to sharpen my senses. The footsteps resumed in 3, 4 and a scrape. The faint click of metal. My pulse counted heartbeats and possibilities. The door eased inward with a sigh, and a blade entered before the body did. A thin, elegant knife with a serrated belly, and a filigree hilt etched with a sigil I recognized from the margins of nightmares. A folded hawk's wing pierced by a thorn. Not our pack. Worse. Not a pack at all. Hunters. The kind that wore human faces and sold wolf deaths like rare spices. He stepped inside, a silhouette cut from patience, hood dripping. I caught his scent and swallowed bile. Oils to blunt wolf noses, clean ocean-cold steel. And under it, the ghost of wolfsbane. He didn't look at me first. He looked at the floor, at the drag lines, at the dark shapes resolving into meaning. His eyes moved like someone reading a language that had been their first lullaby. When he turned toward the cot, when his blade tilted toward Kale's chest, I didn't think. I moved. The knife I threw wasn't meant to kill. I knew I wouldn't get that clean. It clipped his wrist, enough to make him drop the elegant thing that wanted my alpha's heart. He hissed and spun. I closed the space and met him like a storm meets a cliff. Reckless, inevitable, hungry to break. He was good. He flowed around me in angles and calculations. A dancer with murder for a partner. We traded cuts. Mine burned. His bled. He smiled when he tasted his own iron. The smile said he loved this. Loved the work of ending lives that howled at the moon. Rage lit up my nerves one by one, and for a breath I was 20 again. Unbroken and stupid enough to believe that love could argue with a king and win. I fainted low, saw his shoulder twitch, and drove my knee into his ribs. Air left him. I slammed his head against the stone, and he slumped hard enough for me to hear the soft change in his breathing that meant blackness had claimed him. I grabbed his dropped knife and held it over his heart. Kale's voice dropped into the room like a falling star. Don't kill him. I didn't look back. Give me a reason. We need answers, he said, and the word we found the old ache in me impressed. I tied the hunter with the rope I used to secure the mill door when the wind lost its temper. I stripped him of his poisons. Bottles clinked. Knives kissed the floor. A tiny dart with a glittering tip rolled into the ashes. I knelt and sniffed it. My vision shivered. The glitter was dried. It didn't matter. My body knew its name. Moonbreaker. A drug that turned wolves' blood against them. Banned in every decent corner of the world. Which meant it always found a way through. Kale watched me with fever-bright eyes. You know your apothecary, he said. I know what's used to chain us, I answered. Us, he repeated softly, like the word were a stone he needed to test the weight of. I turned away before he could see what that did to me. I soaked another strip and pressed it to his wound. His hand caught mine before I could pull back. Hot skin, heavy bones, the old ruined song. I meant what I said, he murmured. I should have died. But something in that river refused. Me, I said. I was in that river. No, he whispered. Before you, something else. A scent, a promise, a memory I don't deserve. It dragged me toward you like a tide that knows only one shore. My heart beat a wild rhythm that wanted to become a word. I didn't let it. You're delirious, I said. Save your poetry for your council. He smiled. Not cruel, not royal. Human. It hurt more than the knife had. You used to like my poetry. I used to like believing you were capable of it, I answered. Rain thickened again beyond the walls. The hunter stirred, a slow return to light. Kale's eyes sharpened. The fever retreated an inch. His jaw set in that old war line. We don't have long, he said. He won't be alone. No, I agreed. He'll be the hand the arm sends first. And the arm? I let the truth land between us, heavy and wet. The ones who sell our skin to men who like the smell of power. Kale's gaze slid to the hunter's sigil. A muscle ticked in his cheek. Something like shame crossed his face and vanished. They should never have gotten this close. You sent me far from your walls, I said softly. Far is close when no one is watching. His eyes closed for a breath. When they opened, they didn't look away from me. I was wrong, he said. The room tilted. Not from the rain, not from blood loss, from the shape of a thing I'd once begged the moon to hear and send back to me unbroken. Save it, I said. Too fast. Too sharp. Words don't stitch like thread. He nodded, and the acceptance there nearly undid me. Then let me give you something else. What? Truth, he said. Someone within my walls opened the gate that led me to that river. And the scent I remembered before I sank wasn't wolfsbane. It was roses and smoke. It was the scent I buried when I told fate no. My breath left me. The old mill seemed to lean in to listen. You're fevered, I said, but my voice didn't sound like mine. You're remembering wrong. His eyes were steady. Am I? The hunter moaned. Questions swarmed like hornets around honey. The night outside pressed its ear to our door. I took a breath that knew it was a mistake and asked it anyway. If I hadn't been at the river, would you still be here? No, he said. And in that one syllable I heard every unmade choice we'd tried to outrun. But I am, and so are you, and whoever wanted me dead didn't plan for either. I turned the hunter onto his back, the elegant blade resting at his throat. His eyes fluttered open into mine. He saw what I wasn't hiding. Talk, I said softly, or I let the alpha behind me forget that mercy is a language he ever learned. The hunter smiled with blood between his teeth, that patient smile again. You think I fear death? No, I whispered, leaning closer until he could see the years in my eyes. I think you fear being useless to the ones who sent you. And you will be, if you don't tell me now, he hesitated. It was small, but it was there. Behind me, Kale's breath steadied. Something in the world shifted one notch toward a war we hadn't named. The hunter's lips parted. A single word fell out, heavy as thunder. Briar. The knife trembled in my hand. Kale went still, utterly still, a predator listening to the air change. Briar. A castle of riddled corridors and velvet knives. A court that didn't run on blood alone, but on secrets dressed in silk. The one place our pack pretended didn't exist, because admitting it did meant admitting that power can be bought cheaper in shadows than won in daylight. Kale's voice dropped to a place winter can't thaw. Close his eyes, he said. We moved before dawn. I didn't ask where. I didn't ask how he thought he'd walk. I didn't ask if I was included in the we he'd used. I simply nodded, because the answer had already been written into the night when I dragged him from the river. A wind pushed through the trees, and the ivy on the mill wall rustled like a curtain drawn back. Somewhere far away, a wolf sang to a moon that had chosen clouds over honesty. I tasted iron and rain, and the beginning of something that would either save us or finish what the river started. We had a name. We had a prisoner. We had a wound, old and new. And a king who should have died and didn't. And we had me, the rejected Omega who refused to let the water keep what it wanted. Hook your heart to this. At dawn, we would walk into the open with a secret that bled, a bond that wouldn't die, and an enemy that had finally said its name. And the first face waiting for us would be one I had prayed never to see again. Chapter 3. The bond that refused to break dawn crawled out of the forest like a wounded animal, slow, cold, unwilling. The river behind the mill was still whispering secrets, its surface stained with faint streaks of blood that the current hadn't yet forgotten. I hadn't slept. Couldn't. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Kale's face when he'd said Briar. The name alone carried ghosts. The kind of ghosts that didn't fade, only waited. He lay against the stone wall now, half human, half wolf, his breath ragged but steady. The fever had eased, but a new fire burned in his eyes. Not sickness. Not pain. Purpose. I hated that I recognized it. Your wound won't hold if you move, I said quietly, wringing the last of the night's rainwater from my shawl. He didn't answer right away. The golden light cut through the mill's cracks, tracing his jaw, catching on the scar that now marked his ribs. My work. My defiance etched into his skin. Every hour we wait, they move closer, he murmured. If they followed the scent to this place once, they'll do it again. And next time, they won't send one. I met his eyes. Then you'll die fighting. I didn't pull you from that river just to bury you on the shore. The faintest hint of a smile touched his mouth. That same cold, beautiful smirk that used to make my heart ache. You'd rather bury me later? I'd rather not bury you at all, I snapped. Then softer. Not until I have answers. He studied me, the air between us heavy, tense, threaded with something unspoken. The ghost of a bond that had been broken but never undone. Outside, a raven screamed. The sound echoed through the valley like an omen. Briar, I whispered, the name tasting of old blood. Why would they come for you? Why now? Kale's jaw tightened. Because I refused to kneel. To who? He looked at the ground for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was low, almost reverent. To the Council of Alphas who built their thrones on silver chains and human gold. Briar trades in loyalty, the kind you can buy with fear. They offered me an alliance. I told them my pack would never sell its wolves. And they tried to drown you for it. He nodded once. They don't like being told no. I felt a cold weight settle in my chest. The pieces began to fall into place. The wolf's bane, the silver wound, the hunter's crest. But one piece didn't fit. Why send humans? I asked. Why not wolves? Kale's eyes darkened. Because wolves can be swayed. Humans can be bought. But the kind they send... His gaze drifted toward the unconscious hunter still tied to the pillar. They're trained to kill what they can't understand. The man stirred, groaning softly. I reached for the blade on the floor before he could move. Kale's hand caught my wrist, gentle but firm. I'll question him, Kale said. You can barely stand. Then I'll sit, he replied, voice rough but resolute. But he'll answer me. The hunter's eyes fluttered open, green, sharp, calculating. He looked from me to Kale, recognition flashing like lightning. You should have let the river finish the job, he rasped. Kale leaned forward, every trace of the wounded wolf gone. In its place sat a king, and robbed you of the chance to beg for your life. The hunter smiled through the blood on his lips. You can kill me, Alpha, but the deal's already sealed. Briar doesn't stop because you bleed. Then maybe it stops when you do, I hissed, pressing the knife closer to his throat. He laughed. Soft, broken, cruel. You think you're saving him? You're just dragging him toward the same end. The river was mercy. What waits now? His justice. Kale's eyes turned silver bright. Justice for who? For her, the hunter whispered, and that single word made the air in the room freeze. Her who? I demanded. He grinned, teeth red. The one you both forgot. Before Kale could move, the man bit down hard on something hidden between his teeth. His eyes rolled back and the stench of burnt wolfsbane filled the air. Within seconds, his body went limp. I stumbled back, choking on the smell. Poison. He killed himself. Kale's hand fisted in the dirt. Coward. But I wasn't looking at the corpse. My mind was spiraling around his last words. The one you both forgot. I turned toward Kale slowly. Who was he talking about? His face gave nothing away, but his silence did. Kyle. He exhaled, long and bitter. My sister. The words hit like a knife to the gut. Your sister? You never said... She died. He cut in sharply. Years ago. Or so I believed. I stared at him. And now you think she didn't? He shook his head once, jaw clenched. No, I think Briar made sure I believed she did. Outside, the storm began to gather again. The wind carried the scent of wet earth and something darker, a promise of ruin. Then we find them, I said, and we find her. Kale looked up at me, disbelief flickering in his eyes. You'd come with me? After everything? I met his gaze without flinching. I didn't drag you from that river to let someone else finish what they started. Besides, my voice faltered, but I forced the truth out anyway. If Briar's behind this, they'll come for me too. You don't reject the Alpha King and survive without making enemies. Something shifted in his eyes. Respect, sorrow, maybe even guilt. You always were braver than I did. The words hit harder than they should have. I turned away before he could see how they landed. We burned the hunter's body before dawn broke fully. His ashes scattered into the river he'd hoped would claim Kyle. The smoke curled skyward like a prayer no one would answer. Kyle watched in silence. His wound still bled beneath the bandages, but he didn't seem to feel it. The pain was elsewhere. Older, deeper. What are you thinking? I asked. He didn't look at me when he said that maybe fate isn't done punishing me yet. Or maybe it's giving you a second chance, I said quietly. He turned then, his eyes catching the pale morning light. And what about you, Omega? What does fate owe you? I smiled, and small, sad reel. Nothing. It already took everything once. What's left is mine to take back. For a heartbeat, neither of us spoke. Then, without another word, he turned toward the path leading out of the valley. We left the mill behind, a graveyard of secrets and ghosts. The forest opened before us, endless and whispering. The scent of rain clung to our skin, the promise of war heavy on the wind. As we walked side by side through the mist, one truth burned quietly in my chest. I had saved the Alpha King once, But this time, if we failed, I might be the one who needed saving. And somewhere far ahead, hidden among the ruins of Briar, a woman with the Alpha King's blood waited, smiling in the dark. Chapter 4. The Wolf Who Hunted Shadows. The path from the mill bled into wilderness, thick, wet, and whispering. Every tree seemed to lean in as we passed, as though the forest itself knew what hunted us. The sky hadn't yet decided between night and morning. It hung heavy with bruised clouds, streaked with gold and gray. Cale moved beside me, his steps slower than they used to be, but steady. The Alpha King who once commanded armies now limped through mud, a blade hidden beneath his cloak, a wound still leaking beneath the bandage I'd tied with trembling hands. Every time he faltered, my heart clenched. I hated it. How easily worry still found room beside anger in my chest. How even after everything, his pain felt like mine. The silence stretched between us like a ghost that refused to leave. Until finally I broke it. How far is Briar? Cale's voice was low. 2 days if we take the ridge route. Less if we follow the river. And which one gets us killed faster? The river, he said without hesitation. That's why we'll take it. I gave him a sharp look. You can't fight with that wound. I don't plan to fight, he said, glancing sideways at me. Not unless I have to. I scoffed. Since when do you wait for someone else to strike first? Since the last time I didn't, he murmured. Something in his tone made me stop walking. Kyle, what really happened that night? Who did this to you? For a long moment he said nothing. The wind caught his hair, dragging it across his face like strands of black fire. When he finally spoke, the words came slow and careful, like he was afraid saying them would make them real. I was returning from a meeting with the southern clans, he said. They'd warned me about Briar. Said someone inside their ranks was buying loyalty with silver and blood. I dismissed it. I thought no one in my pack would ever betray me. He laughed once, a dry, bitter sound. I was wrong. I felt the cold spread through me. Someone from your own pack. He nodded. A guard. One I trusted enough to stand behind me. And he struck you? No. Cale's jaw tightened. He led me to the riverbank under the pretense of a patrol. Said he'd found something. Tracks that smelled of wolfsbane. When I bent to check, something hit me from behind. I remember the scent before the world went black. What scent? His eyes found mine. Roses and smoke. My breath caught. That scent again. The one he'd mentioned in the mill. The one he said reminded him of a promise. He saw the recognition in my face. You remember it too, don't you? I nodded slowly. Your sister. She used to wear oil made from burning rose petals. His expression darkened. I thought it was just a memory trying to comfort me before death. But now, his voice faltered. Now I think she was there. Then she's alive. Or worse, he said, voice hardening. She's working with Briar. I didn't answer. Some truths were too heavy to carry in daylight. We walked until the forest thinned and the sound of rushing water returned. Louder this time, wilder. The river curved ahead, its surface reflecting the broken light of dawn. Mist rose from it like smoke from a battlefield. That's when the wind shifted, and my blood froze. Wolfsbane. The scent was faint, but unmistakable. Cale stiffened. They're close. Before I could respond, a soft whine cut through the mist, a sound so quiet it almost sounded human. Then another, and another. Stay behind me, Cale said, drawing his blade, but I didn't listen. The sound wasn't a threat. It was a cry. I pushed through the reeds until I found it, small, trembling, eyes wide with terror. A pup. No older than a few weeks, its fur black as midnight, its paw trapped in a steel snare. Oh, gods. I dropped to my knees. Cale was beside me a moment later, his expression unreadable. It's bait, he said. They left it here to draw us out. I don't care, I hissed. Help me free it. He hesitated, scanning the trees. Then, with a low growl of frustration, he knelt beside me and pried open the trap with his bare hands. The metal groaned, slicing into his palms, blood mixing with rust. The pup whimpered once and collapsed into my lap. I tore a strip from my cloak, wrapping its paw gently. Its tiny heart hammered against my chest, wild with fear. Then, a branch cracked. Kale was on his feet instantly, blade raised. From the tree-lined shadows emerged, 5 figures cloaked in gray, moving with the silence of hunters. The same sigil glimmered on their weapons. A hawk's wing pierced by a thorn. Briar's mark. Kale stepped forward, his presence shifting. The alpha in him awakened, slow and terrifying. Even weakened, his power rolled through the clearing like thunder. "Come to finish what the river couldn't?" he called out, voice low, dangerous. The leader, a tall man with silver eyes and no scent, smiled coldly. "The river only cleansed what needed to drown. But you, King Kale," his gaze flicked to me, "and your little traitor Omega, your unfinished business." My blood ran cold. Kale's snarl split the air. "You dare touch her?" the man laughed. "Touch? No, we're only here to collect." He raised his hand. Arrows flew from the mist, slicing through the air. Kale lunged, pulling me behind a fallen log as the shafts buried themselves in the earth where I'd been standing. I clutched the pup to my chest, heart hammering. "They're using poison-tipped arrows," I noticed, Kale growled. His eyes flashed silver again. "Stay here." Before I could stop him, he surged forward, blade flashing through the fog. The first hunter fell before he even screamed. The second met Kale's blade with his own, and lost his head a moment later. He fought like a storm unleashed, all fury and grace and blood. But every strike cost him. His wound tore wider, blood soaking his cloak. "Kyle!" I screamed, but he didn't stop. A hunter lunged from behind, blade aimed at his back. I moved without thinking. My knife found the man's throat before his blade found Kale's. He dropped at my feet, eyes wide with shock. Kale turned, saw me, and for the briefest moment, amid the chaos and blood, something like pride flickered in his gaze. Then the last hunter moved. Silent, precise, his arrow aimed straight at Kale's heart. I threw myself between them. The arrow struck my shoulder, the force knocking me to the ground. Fire exploded beneath my skin. I screamed, the scent of wolfsbane flooding my nose. Kyle caught me before I hit the ground, his hands pressing over the wound. No, stay with me." The world tilted. The trees blurred. My lungs burned. "The poison was fast, too fast, I told you." I tried to smile, my voice breaking. "I don't leave things drowning." "Stop talking," he growled, voice shaking. "You're not dying for me," the pup whimpered somewhere nearby. The wind howled. I felt the world slipping, edges fading, sound turning to a dull hum. Kale's hand cupped my face, his thumb trembling against my cheek. "You hear me?" His voice cracked, raw and desperate. "You're not dying. Not like this, not because of me." "Then save me," I whispered, barely audible. Something primal flashed in his eyes, wild, dangerous, unstoppable. His pupils dilated, his breath deepened, and for the first time since that night years ago, I felt the bond, the mate bond. It roared back to life, burning through the darkness like fire in dry grass. Kale's voice dropped to a growl. "I swore I'd never mark you. I thought it would spare you pain." His hand trembled as he brushed hair from my face. "But I won't lose you again." His fangs grazed my neck. I gasped as heat shot through me, pain and pleasure tangled, unstoppable. The world went white. The poison's burn vanished. My heartbeat steadied. Every nerve in my body screamed, and then melted into something fierce and alive. Kale pulled back, his lips stained red. "You're mine," he whispered, voice shaking with fury and relief. "No river, no god, no curse will take you from me again." My vision cleared slowly. The hunters were gone. The forest was silent again, and I wasn't the same. His mark pulsed beneath my skin, glowing faintly like embers. The bond we had buried years ago had clawed its way back to life. But as the light faded, I saw something in his eyes, something that wasn't relief. It was fear. He knew what he'd done. By marking me again, he had broken the law of the alphas, and somewhere far beyond the river, in the dark towers of Briar, Someone would feel that bond ignite and know exactly where to find us. Chapter 5. The Blood Oath of the Alpha King. The world swayed between silence and storm. The river hissed behind us like a serpent waking. The wind carried the scent of iron and smoke, and somewhere in that trembling dawn, something ancient had been reborn. The bond. It pulsed between us, raw and unhealed, golden threads woven from pain, longing, and something far older than forgiveness. I could feel him now. Not just beside me, but inside me. Every heartbeat of his echoed through my veins like thunder chasing lightning. His fear, his rage, his guilt, all of it burned through me as if it were mine. Kyle was staring at the mark on my neck, faintly glowing where his teeth had broken the skin. His lips parted, his voice barely more than a whisper. "What have I done?" I pressed a hand against the bite, still warm. "You saved me." He shook his head, pain carving lines deeper than his wound ever could. "I bound you again. I gave you back the curse you never wanted." I managed a broken laugh. "And yet, it feels like breathing again." He looked at me then. Really looked. And for the first time since the river, the mask of the Alpha King slipped. His eyes softened, silver fading into gray. "You don't understand. The mark isn't just a bond. It's a beacon." My breath caught. "A beacon?" He nodded. "Every Alpha bond sends a signal through the Pack's link, through the old magic buried under our bloodlines. The Council will feel it. Briar will feel it. Anyone who ever wanted me dead now knows exactly where to find me." "And me," I whispered. The forest fell utterly still. No birds, no wind, only the river, whispering secrets to the stones. Then Kale's voice hardened again. "We need to move." He pulled his cloak tighter, blood still staining his ribs, but there was no hesitation in his stride. The Alpha was awake again. I followed, my shoulder burning with the ghost of the poison that should have killed me. But the mark pulsed stronger with every step, healing, binding, reminding me that whatever this was, I couldn't run from it anymore. We crossed the ridge by noon, the sun breaking through the clouds in fractured light. The land stretched far below, endless forest and silver mist. Somewhere beyond that horizon lay Briar. Kale stopped at a fallen tree overlooking the valley. His jaw was tight, his hands clenched around the hilt of his sword. "We'll rest here," he said. I sank beside him, exhausted, the pup curled at my feet. Its tiny chest rose and fell, unbothered by the storm that had taken root between its rescuers. Kale stared at the horizon for a long time before speaking again. "You should hate me." I almost laughed, but the sound came out soft, tired. "You made that easy once. And now?" I turned toward him. "Now I don't know what I feel. Hate doesn't burn this way. Hate doesn't make my heart stutter every time you look at me like that." He met my eyes, the storm in him meeting mine. "You think I wanted this?" he asked. "You think I meant to find you again?" "No," I said. "I think fate's been laughing at us for years." Something like a smile ghosted across his lips, gone almost as soon as it appeared. Then he looked down at his hands, blood drying against skin marked with old scars. "I made an oath," he said quietly. "The day I rejected you," I frowned. "An oath?" He nodded, eyes dark. "I swore before the council, before the gods themselves, that I would never take a mate, that no bond would ever tie me again. I thought it would prove my loyalty, my control. And now you've broken it." His gaze lifted, haunted. "When I marked you, I broke a blood oath sealed in the name of the moon. That kind of sin doesn't go unnoticed. The gods don't forgive easily." My chest tightened. "Then what happens now?" He looked toward the clouds gathering over the horizon. "They'll send a hunter. Another one? Not like before," he said. "This one won't be human. This one will be divine." For a moment I couldn't breathe. "You mean the blood oath enforcer?" he interrupted. "A creature older than any alpha alive. It hunts oathbreakers and bond thieves. If it senses my mark on you, it will come for both of us." The silence that followed was suffocating. Only the pup whimpered softly in its sleep, unaware of the doom whispered over its head. I swallowed hard. "Then what do we do?" Kale turned toward me, his eyes blazing like molten silver. "We find Briar before it finds us. If my sister truly lives, she might be the only one who knows how to stop what's coming. And if she's the one who sent it, then I'll do what I should have done years ago, he said darkly. And the bloodline that betrayed the crown. The words cut through me, sharp and cold. I saw the flicker of pain behind his anger, the way his hands trembled just slightly when he said it. Whatever she had done, she was still his sister. And I knew that if the time came to strike, it would destroy him. We started moving again before dusk, the forest turning golden around us. Every step felt heavier, like the bond between us was a chain pulling tighter. At one point he stumbled, blood seeping through his bandages again. I caught his arm before he fell. "You're bleeding through." He tried to pull away, but I held firm. "Stop pretending you're made of stone," I said softly. "You saved me. Now let me save you." He froze. Something flickered in his eyes. Not command, not pride, but surrender. Slowly, he let me lower him to the ground. I tore the bandage away, cleaned the wound again, my fingers brushing against the heat of his skin. He watched me in silence until I couldn't take the weight of his gaze anymore. "What?" I asked. "Do you remember," he said quietly, "the first time you touched me?" I hesitated, the memory flooding back. A summer night years ago, a fevered alpha who wouldn't let anyone close until I pressed my hand to his heart and whispered, "It's only pain." "You've survived worse." I nodded. "I remember." His eyes softened. "You still do that? You still look at me like I'm worth saving." I looked away. "Maybe that's my curse." He smiled, small, tragic, almost human. "Then maybe we deserve each other's curses." The air between us shifted, hot, charged, dangerous. For a heartbeat, I thought he would close the distance between us. His hand lifted, fingers brushing my jaw, thumb tracing the edge of the mark he'd given me. The bond flared, fire meeting fire. The world fell away until there was only us, two broken souls burning in the ruin we'd built together. Then the pup yelped suddenly, snapping the spell. Cale jerked his hand back, breath ragged. I turned toward the sound, and froze. The pup's fur stood on end, eyes fixed on the darkness between the trees. The forest had gone silent again. Too silent. Cale's voice dropped to a growl. "They're here." A shape moved in the shadows, tall, shifting, its body half smoke, half bone. The air reeked of old blood and iron. Its eyes burned crimson. I felt the mark on my neck sear as if it were being branded all over again. Cale stood, his sword gleaming in the dying light. "The enforcer," he whispered. "They've found us." The creature stepped into view, its voice not spoken but felt, crawling through the air like fire through silk. "Cale of the broken oath," it said, the sound echoing in my bones. "The gods demand your blood." And then it turned its gaze on me. Those burning red eyes locking onto my mark. And hers. The ground shook. The trees screamed. The sky itself seemed to bend under the weight of its presence. Cale shifted fully this time. Bones cracking, fur bursting from skin. The Alpha King unleashed once more. He looked back at me once, eyes wild and silver bright. "Run if you want to live." But I didn't move, because for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of dying, only of losing him again. So I lifted my blade, stepped beside him, and whispered, "Then we fight." The enforcer smiled, a sound like death, and lunged, and the forest exploded into war. Chapter 6. The Hunt of the Oathbreaker, the forest screamed. The air split open with the sound of claws raking against stone, of divine fury meeting mortal defiance. The enforcer descended like a nightmare made flesh, wings of smoke unfolding, veins glowing faint crimson under its translucent skin. Its face was neither man nor beast, but something born between prayers and punishments. Cale roared, the kind of sound that made the earth remember who its king was. His fur, black as the abyss, shimmered silver where moonlight broke through the trees. He lunged forward, striking first, his claws tearing through mist and bone alike. But the creature didn't bleed. It reformed. Every cut closed in an instant. I could feel his frustration through the bond, the rush of anger, pain, and disbelief as the enforcer laughed, voice like iron chains dragging across marble. "You broke the oath written in the blood of gods," it hissed. "Now your blood answers for it." Cale spun, dodging a swipe that sliced a tree in half. The ground shook. The river behind us boiled as if it shared his rage. He fought like something half-starved, half-sacred. But I saw it, even through the chaos. His strength was fading. The wound from the hunters still bled. Every strike cost him more than the last. "Cale," I shouted, running toward him. "It's feeding on your power. Stop attacking head-on." He growled, snapping at the enforcer's throat, his eyes burning silver bright. "It's divine," he snarled through the bond. "It doesn't bleed like mortals do. Then we make it bleed differently." I screamed back. My hand went to the small pouch tied to my belt. Herbs, salts, dried petals, bits of crushed moonroot. My mother's old remedies. I remembered her saying once, "The gods don't die by blades, child. They die by truth." I dropped to my knees, fingers digging through the dirt. The ground was slick with blood and ash. But beneath it, I found what I needed. The earth's heartbeat. I pressed my palms into it and whispered words I hadn't spoken in years. The air around me shivered. The wind shifted, carrying the scent of old magic. Omega magic, soft and forbidden. The kind Cale had once forbidden me to use, fearing it would expose me to powers even alphas couldn't control. Now I didn't care. The earth responded. Roots twisted, branches groaned, the river hissed louder, as though my voice had reached the ancient veins beneath the forest. The enforcer turned its burning gaze toward me, confusion flickering in its hell-lit eyes. Cale saw the shift, felt it through our bond. "Don't," he began, but it was too late. I stood, power crawling through me like lightning through veins of stone. The bond between us pulsed, alive, awake, and for the first time, I felt not just his power, but ours. I raised my hand. The ground split open beneath the enforcer's feet. A scream, high, furious, tore through the clearing as roots snaked upward, wrapping around its body, searing where they touched its smoky skin. Cale's voice filled the bond, rough and full of disbelief. "What are you—" "Ending it," I whispered. "With you." The enforcer thrashed, the air thick with the smell of burnt earth and divine rot. It tried to tear free, but every time it did, the roots regrew, fed by my blood, my voice, my fury. I stepped closer until I could see the flickering veins beneath its translucent chest. "This bond," it hissed, its voice fractured now, a blend of 10,000 screams. "It is unnatural, a union of rejection and defiance. You cannot rewrite fate. Watch me," I breathed. Cale lunged forward again, his claws igniting in silver fire, the same light that pulsed through my veins. He struck at the creature's heart just as I thrust my hand toward its chest. The power met in the middle, alpha strength colliding with omega spirit, and for a heartbeat, the entire forest went silent. Then the world erupted. Light tore through everything, the trees, the river, the night itself. The enforcer screamed, its body fracturing into shards of light that fell like dying stars. The sound was unbearable, the power blinding. I felt it ripple through my bones, tearing through my lungs, through us. When it ended, the air was heavy with ash. The creature was gone, nothing left but dust glowing faintly on the forest floor. Cale stood still, panting, his fur matted with blood and firelight. Slowly, painfully, he shifted back, bones cracking, the Alpha King returning to flesh. His chest rose and fell in shallow, uneven breaths. I stumbled toward him, every step agony. The world tilted, but he caught me before I fell, his hands still trembling, pressed against my waist. "You shouldn't have done that," he rasped. I smiled weakly. "You're welcome." He shook his head, eyes blazing with equal parts fury and fear. "You used blood magic. Omega's flame. It burns both ways. You could have died. But I didn't," I whispered, resting my forehead against his, "because you didn't let go." His thumb brushed my cheek, leaving a streak of soot and warmth. The fury faded from his gaze, replaced by something far more dangerous, Tenderness. You were always stronger than I wanted to believe, he said softly. And you were always too proud to admit it, I replied, a small smile tugging at my lips. He laughed once, a real laugh this time, low and raw, the kind that sounded like a memory rediscovered. Fate must be laughing at us. Maybe, I whispered, but I think it's scared of us now. The pup padded between us then, nuzzling against Kale's boot. Its tiny eyes reflected the faint glow of dying embers. He looked down, then back at me. It's not over, he said quietly. The enforcer was just the beginning. The moment it died, the gods will have felt it. Briar will have felt it. And your sister. He nodded grimly. She'll know I'm coming. The words hung between us. Promise and threat intertwined. The wind shifted again, colder now, carrying the scent of rain and metal. A storm building somewhere unseen. I looked at Kale, at the blood drying on his jaw, the exhaustion in his stance, the stubborn fire in his eyes. Then we go to Briar, I said. He frowned. You can barely stand. I met his gaze and smiled through the ache. Neither can you. Seems fair. For a moment he said nothing. Then, with a sigh that sounded almost like surrender, he brushed a hand against my cheek again. Then we face it together, he said softly. The cursed king and his impossible mate. The bond between us flared once more, not painful now, but fierce and alive. Our hearts beat in sync, our breaths tangled, our souls bound by choice and defiance. As we turned toward the horizon, the first drops of rain began to fall, hissing against the ashes of what we'd destroyed. Behind us, the forest whispered. Ahead of us, Briar waited. And above, unseen but watching, the gods stirred in their sleep, angry and intrigued, because two broken souls had done what even fate feared. They'd rewritten the rules. Chapter 7. The Gates of Briar. The rain followed us for 3 days straight, cold, relentless, whispering our sins to the soil that drank it. We didn't speak much after the battle with the enforcer. There were no words left for what we'd done, or for what we'd become. Each night, the fire between us burned low, both literally and not. We took turns staying awake. I watched the forest, and Kale watched me, as if making sure I wouldn't vanish into the dark again. By the fourth dawn, the trees began to change. The moss grew thicker, the air heavier. The scent of roses and smoke returned. Faint at first, then stronger with every step. That scent. The one from the river, the one Kale swore belonged to his sister. And when the forest finally opened, we saw it. Briar. It wasn't a castle anymore. Not really. It was a ruin rebuilt from sin and splendor, a fortress of glass and bone rising from blackened vines, its spires cut into the clouds like knives. Every inch of it reeked of old magic and something worse. Betrayal. Kyle stopped at the ridge, his cloak clinging to his soaked frame. It shouldn't still stand, he said quietly. I burned it once. I glanced at him, startled. You what? After she died, he said, his voice hollow. Or when I thought she did. I came here myself, set fire to every tower, watched it crumble. Then how... She rebuilt it, he murmured, piece by cursed piece. We stood there for a moment, the sound of the wind threading between the dead vines. The air around Briar shimmered faintly, an enchantment. No birds, no movement, the kind of silence that hides something waiting to kill you. Kale's hand brushed mine, not by accident. Stay close, he said. We descended the hill. The closer we got, the colder it became. Not the chill of weather. The kind of cold that seeps through bone and whispers to your memories. I could feel it even in the bond. Kale's heartbeat slowing, his breath catching, every step heavier than the last. Kal, I whispered. Are you all right? He didn't answer. His eyes were locked on the gates ahead. Massive, forged of black steel and silver thorns. Then I saw what had frozen him. There, carved into the gates themselves, was the symbol we'd seen on the hunters. the hawk's wing pierced by a thorn, only this time, the crest wasn't metal. It was made of bone, human bone. Kyle reached forward and pressed his palm to the gate. It pulsed beneath his touch, glowing faintly red. "Bloodbound," he muttered. "It'll open for me. Or trap you inside." He looked at me, and something close to a smile flickered through the storm in his eyes. "You really think I'm walking away?" I sighed softly. "Didn't think so." He cut his palm with his blade and pressed it to the gate. The blood hissed on contact, sizzling like molten gold. The vines groaned, twisting, unraveling, until the gate split open with a low, ancient moan. And then, the scent hit us like a blow. Roses, smoke, wolfsbane. And underneath it all, Hercale's sister. The great hall beyond the gates was a cathedral of ruin. Candles burned in iron cages. The walls were lined with portraits. Faces of wolves long dead, their eyes gouged out, their names scratched away. At the end of the hall sat a throne. And on that throne, she waited. Alive. Her hair, once the same dark shade as Kale's, was now streaked with silver, glowing faintly under the candlelight. Her eyes, those same molten silver eyes that ran in their bloodline, burned with something ancient and unholy. "Hello, brother," she said, her voice smooth, soft and venomous. "You look terrible." Kale froze where he stood. "Arya." The name left his lips like a ghost. She smiled faintly. "So you do remember." I felt the bond twist inside me. Kale's disbelief, his grief, his anger, all tangled into one unbearable pulse. "You were dead," he said. "I buried you." Arya rose from the throne, her movements liquid, graceful, wrong. "You buried what I used to be. The rest of me, Briar kept alive." "What did you do?" he demanded. "What I had to," she said. "The gods killed our pack's right to rule. They made us servants of their oaths. I refused. So I broke them. One by one." Kyle's eyes darkened. "You sold your soul to this place." Arya tilted her head, studying me. "And you brought her." Her gaze pinned me in place. It wasn't the look of a stranger, it was recognition. "You're the Omega he chose," she murmured. "The one he rejected to prove loyalty to the gods. The one whose pain built his throne." Kale's fists clenched. "Leave her out of this." "Oh, but she's already in it," Arya said softly. "Don't you see, brother? She's the key. The bond you've rekindled, it's not a curse. It's a door. Through it, I can reach the gods themselves." My heart stilled. "What?" Kale's voice was ice. "You're insane." "Maybe," she said. "But insanity is just another name for freedom." She stepped closer, her eyes glimmering with a cruel kind of beauty. "You should thank me. The gods sent their enforcer, didn't they? And yet here you stand. Because I wanted you alive. Why?" Kale growled. "So you can open the final gate," she whispered. "Your blood, your bond, your sin, it's the last piece I need. And once it's open, the gods will fall." The silence that followed was deafening. Kale's voice broke it, low and shaking. "You'll destroy everything. The world, the packs, the balance." "Balance is a lie," Arya hissed. "We were born to rule, not beg for mercy. I died once under their justice. I won't kneel again." Her eyes flicked toward me, sharp as knives. "And you, Omega, tell me, when he rejected you, did you not wish the heavens would burn for what he did?" I swallowed hard, my voice barely a whisper. "Yes," she smiled. "Then help me. Let it burn." Kale stepped between us in an instant, his voice thunder. "You lay a hand on her and I'll tear this place apart." Arya didn't flinch. "You already did." And yet here it stands. The air between them crackled. Alpha against alpha, blood against blood. The bond inside me burned so bright it hurt. For a moment, I thought the world itself might shatter under the weight of what was coming. Then Arya's voice dropped to a whisper. "Briar lives in both of you now. The question is, who will it obey?" The ground trembled. The walls shuddered. Candles blew out all at once. And in the darkness that followed, I saw it. A circle of light blooming beneath our feet, ancient runes igniting like stars. A trap. Kale's eyes widened. "Arya, no." The runes exploded into flame. The floor split open. And before the darkness swallowed us whole, I heard her laughter echo through the hall, soft, broken, triumphant. Welcome home. Brother, Chapter 8. The Curse. Beneath briar darkness swallowed us whole. The floor fell away, and the world turned into a roaring abyss of wind and flame. I felt Kale's hand grasp mine, rough, burning, desperate. The bond between us flared, our heartbeats merging into one terrified rhythm as we plunged through the dark. Then, as suddenly as it began, the fall stopped. We hit ground. Hard. My breath tore out of me, the world spinning in black and crimson. The air smelled of ash and roses, sweet and suffocating all at once. My palms burned from the landing, my ears ringing. "Kyle," I whispered, my voice trembling. "I'm here." His voice came from the dark, low but steady. I reached toward the sound until his hand found mine again, anchoring me back to reality. A faint red glow flickered above us. Slowly, my eyes adjusted. We weren't in Briar anymore. We were beneath it. The chamber stretched endlessly, walls pulsing faintly like living flesh. Runes crawled across the stone floor, glowing red, feeding on the blood we'd spilled when we fell. Above us, chains hung from the ceiling, heavy and rusted, dripping something dark. The air itself was alive, breathing, whispering, remembering. "What is this place?" I breathed. Kyle rose to his feet slowly, his hand tightening on the hilt of his sword. His eyes glowed faintly silver in the crimson haze. "The heart," he said. "The true Briar." I frowned. "You mean this thing is alive?" He nodded grimly. "It was never just a fortress." The word grave shivered through me, Kale continued, voice low and bitter. "Our ancestors sealed the body of a fallen god beneath the castle, used its power to bless the bloodline. That's why Briar wolves were stronger, faster. We thought it was divine favor. It wasn't. It was a curse disguised as a gift. And your sister, she's trying to wake it." The ground beneath us pulsed, a slow heartbeat echoing through the walls. I could feel it now, the ancient pulse deep and patient. Every beat made the runes glow brighter. Kale's voice dropped to a whisper. "If she succeeds, the god will rise, and it won't recognize the world it once ruled. It'll burn everything to start over." The thought made my skin crawl. "Then we stop her," he nodded once. "At any cost." A low laugh drifted through the chamber, soft and cruel. "Any cost, brother? Even her?" Arya's voice. We turned. She stood at the far end of the chamber, her body haloed in crimson light. The vines had followed her here, wrapping her arms, threading through her hair like veins. In her hands she held a dagger made of bone, the same color as the crest on Briar's gates. Her smile was terrible. "Do you know what I had to trade for this power? Do you know what it cost me to bring you here?" Kale's voice shook with fury. "You killed our people!" "I freed them," she screamed, her voice echoing off the walls. "They were slaves to the god's will, living and dying under laws written by those who never bled. I only wanted to give them choice." "Choice?" Kale snarled. "You call this choice? You built a kingdom on corpses." She stepped closer, eyes burning brighter. "You think I wanted this?" she hissed. "Do you know what it feels like to wake in a grave, brother? To claw your way out of the dirt and realize your gods left you there to rot?" Her gaze flicked toward me. She understands. She knows what rejection feels like. Kale moved between us, growling low. "You don't speak her name." Arya tilted her head, her smile widening. Still protecting her even now. Still blind to what she truly is. My heart skipped. "What are you talking about? You think the gods marked you by accident?" she said softly. "You think your bond to him was born of fate?" I froze. "What do you mean?" Arya's voice dropped to a whisper that cut like glass. "You're not just an Omega. You were made for him." The air left my lungs. "What?" Kale stiffened. "Arya, stop." "She's bound to you by creation, brother," Arya said, circling us now like a predator savoring the kill. "You didn't find her. The gods planted her. A living key, flesh born from divine blood. That's why the bond never broke. That's why even rejection couldn't sever it. No," I whispered, shaking my head. "That's not possible." "Look around you," she said, gesturing to the runes, the chains, the pulsing heart beneath the floor. Why do you think she can wield the magic that burned an enforcer? No Omega can do that. Only one touched by divinity. Kale turned toward me, his face pale, his jaw clenched. Don't listen to her. But I saw the truth flicker in his eyes. Doubt. Recognition. I felt it too, I whispered. When I touched the ground that night, it responded to me, not to the herbs. To me. The chamber pulsed brighter as if hearing me. Arya smiled, triumphant. You see? She's the heart's echo, the last remnant of the god buried beneath Briar. And when her blood touches the altar... She raised the bone dagger. The god will wake. Kale lunged. Arya moved faster. The vines around her erupted, striking like serpents. Kale's sword met them mid-air, sparks flying. I ducked as a lash of thorns cracked the ground beside me, slicing deep into stone. Run! Kale shouted. But I didn't. Because behind Arya, the altar had begun to glow. A massive slab of obsidian carved with ancient symbols. And above it hung a shape, massive, suspended by chains. A skeletal figure wrapped in roots and fire, the god's corpse. Its eyes, empty sockets filled with light, opened. The air shook. The vines screamed. Arya raised the dagger higher, her voice echoing through the chamber. For the fallen. For our freedom! Kale shouted my name. Time slowed. I saw him leap. Too far, too late. I saw the dagger plunge toward me, glowing bright as the sun. And I moved. Not away. Forward. My hand caught the blade mid-strike. Pain exploded through me, but I didn't let go. My blood ran down its length, bright and gold. The runes beneath our feet erupted in light so blinding it turned night into day. Arya screamed. Not in triumph this time, but in horror. The power surged upward. Through the dagger, through me. Through the god's corpse itself. The chains rattled, breaking one by one. The air howled with the sound of 1,000 heartbeats roaring to life. Kale's arms caught me as I collapsed. His voice was distant now, frantic, broken. Stay with me! Don't you dare leave me! But I could barely hear him. The bond was burning, bright, too bright. I felt my blood turning to fire, my pulse sinking with the god beneath us. And then, the heartbeat stopped. Everything went still. The chamber fell silent. And when I opened my eyes again, the altar was gone. The god's body was gone, and so was Arya. Only Kale remained, kneeling beside me, his face streaked with tears and blood. What did you do? He whispered. My voice was barely a breath. I think I took its place, and as I looked up at the ceiling of the chamber, the vines began to bloom, blood-red roses unfurling, their petals glowing faintly gold. A curse had ended, but another had just begun. Chapter 9. The Heart of the God Within Her Silence. A silence so heavy it felt alive, pressing against my chest until breathing became a choice. Kyle's voice was somewhere above me, calling my name, but it sounded far away, like he was speaking from the other side of water. The chamber pulsed faintly, red and gold light flickering across the broken runes. The air still smelled of roses and blood. I tried to move, but my limbs weren't mine anymore. They felt heavier, slower. My heart beat out of rhythm with the world. Deeper, louder, strange. Lyris, Kale whispered, his hands cradling my face, his voice shaking with something raw. Look at me. Please. I opened my eyes. His face blurred in the golden light, his silver eyes wide with terror. I could feel his heart hammering through the bond, but beneath it, another pulse now answered. Not mine, not his. Something older. Something that shouldn't have been awake. The god's heartbeat. It thudded through me like a second rhythm. A storm beneath my skin. Kyle. My voice cracked, unfamiliar. It's inside me, he froze. What are you saying? I can feel it, I whispered. The god, the one she tried to wake, it's not gone. It moved. His eyes widened. Horror and disbelief tangled together. No, you can't. You're not. I am. I pressed my palm to my chest, where the mark still burned faintly gold. It's in me now. I stopped it from rising. But I didn't kill it. I became its cage. The bond trembled between us. Kale's jaw clenched, grief rippling through him so fiercely I felt it like a bruise on my heart. You shouldn't have done that, he whispered. You should have let me die instead. Don't you dare, I rasped. Don't you dare tell me I should have let the world end just to spare you pain. He flinched. You don't understand what you've taken on. That thing is awake, I finished for him. The chamber answered before he could. A tremor rolled through the ground. The runes pulsed again, slower this time, but steady, in time with my pulse. I could hear whispers rising from the walls. Thousands of voices, each one half memory, half prayer. The god was speaking. And I could understand it. It wasn't words. It was intent, like the echo of storms. A promise, a warning. Kale's hands tightened on my shoulders. Talk to me, he said, his voice low, fierce. What is it saying? I swallowed hard, the words trembling on my tongue. It's angry. Angry at who? At everything, I whispered. At the gods who chained it. At the wolves who used it. At the mortals who forgot its name. The light around us began to rise again, gold bleeding into crimson, heat curling up the walls. The vines that lined the chamber started to move, reaching toward me, trembling like living things drawn to flame. Kale stepped back, sword half raised. It's reacting to you. No, I said softly, staring at the vines. It's obeying me. The realization hit like a wave of cold. The vines twisted around my wrist, not attacking, not restraining, waiting. Kale's breath caught. Lyra, stop. I'm not doing anything, I whispered. But the truth was I didn't need to. The god was moving through me, its will and mine tangled. The vines rose higher, curling through the cracks in the stone ceiling, glowing brighter with every pulse of my heart. Kale reached for me, his hand hovering just inches away. Listen to me. You have to fight it. Whatever power it gave you, it's not yours. It never was. I looked up at him then, tears cutting through the soot on my face. It feels like mine now. The bond between us shuddered, light and dark clashing, fighting for dominance. For a heartbeat, I felt his rage and his fear and his love all at once. It almost broke me. Then he did something I didn't expect. He dropped his sword. The sound rang through the chamber like a bell of surrender. He stepped closer until his forehead touched mine. His voice was low, shaking. You are not a god. You are not a curse. You are mine. And if I have to burn every throne and tear down every sky to remind you of who you are, I will. The world trembled. For a second, I almost believed him. But then the god moved again. A searing light tore through my veins. My back arched and I screamed, the sound not entirely human. The vines surged upward, bursting into flame. Gold fire erupted from my skin, cracking through the stone like sunlight breaking through night. Kyle shouted my name, grabbing me before I collapsed. But the light didn't fade. It spread, through the walls, through the ceiling, through the ancient corpse that had once been the god's vessel. And then, I heard it. A voice. Deep. Ageless. Speaking from inside my own heartbeat. You carry my silence. You carry my hunger. Let me rise, and I will give you eternity. I gasped, clutching my head. Get out. Get out of me. Kale pulled me close, his voice harsh. Fight it, Lyris. Don't listen! He cannot save you, the voice hissed. He rejected you once, remember? I will never reject you. I will make the world kneel. Tears blurred my vision. Stop. Kale's arms wrapped around me tighter. His words broke through the storm. You're stronger than it. You always have been. Look at me. I forced my eyes open. His face, blood, ash, and defiance filled my world. His gaze held me like a promise he refused to break. The god's voice thundered again, furious now. You would defy divinity for him? Yes, I whispered. Every time. The mark on my neck burned, the bond flaring to life like a sunburst. Kale's heartbeat matched mine, the rhythm merging again. The light inside me convulsed, gold turning to white, white to shadow, then collapsing inward. And then, silence. The glow faded. The vines stilled. The chamber sighed as if relieved. Kale caught me as I fell forward, holding me tight. His hands trembled as he brushed hair from my face. You did it, he breathed. You took it back, but I didn't answer. My pulse was weak, shallow, fading. The power inside me was quiet now, but not gone. I could feel it sleeping, waiting. He pressed his forehead to mine again. "Stay with me, Lyris, please. You promised we'd face it together." I tried to smile. We did. My hand lifted weakly to his cheek, smearing his tears. "If it wakes again, promise me something," his voice broke. "Anything. Don't save me next time," I whispered. "End me." He flinched like I'd struck him. Don't ask that. But I was already fading, my body heavy, my heartbeat echoing somewhere far below the earth, two rhythms once again out of sync. The last thing I saw was Cale's eyes, silver burning in the dark, filled with fury, love, and despair. And somewhere in the silence between those beats, the god whispered once more, "You cannot kill what was born to be worshipped." The world went black. Chapter 10. When the god wakes in her skin rain drummed against stone somewhere far above, a steady rhythm like the world's heartbeat echoing through layers of earth and time. I floated between that sound and the silence inside me, the silence that wasn't mine. Something stirred beneath my skin. Something vast, watching, waiting. The god hadn't died. It had simply settled. Kyle's voice reached me first, muffled, broken. "Breathe, Lyris. Come back to me." I wanted to answer, to tell him I was trying, but my lips refused to move. Every breath burned like swallowing fire. My body wasn't mine. It was a battlefield, half mortal, half divine. I heard the tremor in his words, the way he whispered my name like a prayer he no longer believed would be answered. Then, the world shifted, a rush of air, the smell of smoke, the scrape of steel. Cale carrying me, his bare feet splashing through the shallow water that pooled across the god's chamber floor. Each step was agony for him. I could feel his strength flicker through the bond, thinning, bleeding away. But he never slowed. He laid me gently against a fallen pillar, his hands shaking as he brushed the wet hair from my face. "Lyris." His voice cracked. "Open your eyes, please." The god stirred again. The sound that escaped my throat wasn't human. A low, distant hum, the whisper of storms across ages. The walls around us shuddered, runes flaring alive again. Cale's breath caught. No, not again. My eyes opened. The gold had returned, brighter, molten, alive. Veins of light crawled down my arms, tracing every vein like cracks in porcelain. The god inside me spoke without sound, its voice sliding through the marrow of my bones. "He begged for mercy once," it murmured. "When he cast you away. Shall we remind him what mercy costs?" "Stop!" I gasped, pressing my palms to the ground, trying to cage it back. "Not him." "Please, not him." Cale's hand found mine. "Fight it," he whispered. "I know you can." The god's laughter echoed through me, 1,000 voices in one. "He broke the bond once. Why protect him now?" "Because I loved him, even when I shouldn't. Even when he'd torn me apart." But love wasn't a language the divine understood. The chamber began to quake again. Vines ripped free from the floor, wrapping around Cale's ankles, his wrists, dragging him backward. He roared, shifting halfway, claws bursting from his hands, eyes glowing silver, but the vines held him fast. "Lyris!" His voice thundered through the dark. "It's using you! You have to—" His words drowned under the sound of my own scream as the light exploded out of me again, bursting across the cavern in a flood of gold and red. For a heartbeat, I saw everything, the past, the war, the gods tearing the world apart, wolves born from their spilled blood. I saw the creation of Briar, the chains that bound it, the first oath ever broken. And at the center of it all, I saw her, not Arya, me. The god's whisper caressed my mind. "You are what I was before the heavens fell. Flesh made of faith, power born from loss. Rise, my vessel. The world will kneel." I saw Cale then, still fighting the vines, his eyes locked on mine. "Don't let it take you," he said, his voice breaking. "You're stronger than this." But I wasn't sure anymore. The god's will poured into me like liquid fire, erasing doubt, erasing pain. Every heartbeat made the chamber brighter, my skin burning with its power. "They broke you," it whispered. "Let me rebuild you. Let me make them remember what they feared." Kael's voice cut through the roar. If you do this, you'll lose yourself. The god laughed inside me. I'll save her from herself. You had your chance, Alpha. Something in Kael snapped then. His eyes flared, his aura flooding the room. Alpha dominance so raw the air thickened. He tore through the vines like paper, blood streaking down his arms. He crossed the distance between us in a blur, his hand gripping my face, forcing my gaze to meet his. I won't lose you to something that doesn't even understand what you are, he growled. His other hand pressed against my heart, right where the light burned brightest. You hear me, Lyris? You are not its vessel. You are mine. The god snarled through me, voice shaking the walls. You claim what is divine? Kael bared his teeth. No, I claim what's human. Not gentle, not desperate, but fierce, a collision of fury, love, and defiance. The bond erupted. Gold met silver, flame met storm. For one impossible heartbeat, the god's voice screamed through us both, shattering everything around. The vines burned away. The light fractured into shards. The chamber cracked, stone splitting as the power between us devoured itself. When it was over, the silence was absolute. Kael fell back, breathless, his hands trembling. I collapsed into his lap, the glow fading from my veins. The mark on my neck still burned faintly, but the divine hum was gone. He cradled my head against his chest, his breath ragged. You're back, he whispered. I nodded weakly, tears sliding down my cheeks. I heard it scream the moment I returned. You silenced a god, Kael. He smiled, weary, beautiful, broken. I've been silenced by you before. A weak laugh escaped me, fading into a sob. It's still inside me, sleeping, waiting. Then we'll make it wait forever, he said softly. Even gods die when they're forgotten. He stood, lifting me in his arms. The chamber above us groaned, cracks spreading across the ceiling. The light of the surface filtered through, pale and gray, the promise of dawn. As we climbed out of the ruins, the first sun rays touched the edge of Briar's towers, turning the broken glass to fire. The roses on the vines had withered, their petals blackened, but their scent lingered, a reminder of everything lost and everything survived. Kael set me down on the ridge, his hand still gripping mine. The air was cold, clean, real. Below us, the ruins of Briar burned. He turned toward me. What now? I looked toward the horizon, where the light met the smoke, where the world waited. Now we run, I said softly. Before the gods remember I'm still breathing. Kael smiled faintly. And if they come? Then they'll learn, I whispered, eyes glowing faintly gold again, that I'm not just their cage anymore. The wind howled through the ruins, carrying the scent of ash and rebirth. And as we disappeared into the morning mist, the heartbeat beneath the earth slowed, but did not stop. Because somewhere in the shadows of Briar, the god smiled. Every cage breaks eventually. Chapter 11. The God Who Dreamed Through Her. The road away from Briar was carved from ash and silence. The forest that once sang with life now stood hollow, its trees blackened and bowed, like sentinels mourning the fall of something sacred. The sky was pale, not the blue of freedom, but the gray of aftermath. Smoke still clung to the horizon, whispering of what had burned. Kael and I didn't speak for a long time. Every step we took felt stolen, borrowed from a world that shouldn't have let us live. The god inside me was quiet. Too quiet. But silence isn't peace, it's waiting. I could still feel it under my skin, coiled like a sleeping serpent, its heartbeat echoing faintly beneath my own. Every now and then, when the wind shifted or the sun hit the horizon just right, I swore I could feel it breathe. Kael's hand brushed mine, a soft, grounding touch that reminded me where I was, who I was. His fingers were warm, but his eyes, they were distant. You're still bleeding, he said finally, voice rough from hours of silence. I glanced down at my arm, the faint cracks of golden light still visible where the god's power had burned through my veins. It doesn't hurt anymore, he frowned. That's what worries me. We stopped near a stream. The water reflected us both. Him, scarred and wild. Me, pale and wrong, the faint gold in my eyes betraying what lingered within. He knelt beside me, washing blood and soot from his hands. I thought once the god was sealed, it would end, that we'd have peace. There's no peace in things like us, I said softly. We were never meant to survive the kind of story we fell into. He looked up sharply, eyes flashing silver. Don't talk like that. Like what? Like you're already gone. I turned away from the intensity in his gaze. Maybe I am. Maybe what came back from that pit isn't entirely me. He rose, the air shifting around him, that quiet, contained alpha fury radiating through the bond. No, I know you. I know the sound of your heartbeat, the scent of your fear, the way you look at me when you're trying to hide a smile. I'd know if you weren't you. Would you? I whispered. Because sometimes I can't tell anymore. The wind rustled through the burnt trees. The god's whisper stirred in the back of my skull, a low velvet voice. He cannot see it yet, but soon he will. They all will. I flinched, pressing my hand to my temple. Stop! I hissed under my breath. Kale froze. Lyris, what is it? Nothing. I lied quickly. He stepped closer, but I turned away before his hands could touch me. If he did, he'd feel it. The faint hum beneath my skin, the divine energy that hadn't died with the ruins of Briar. I didn't want him to know. Not yet. We made camp when night fell. The stars were faint, the moon half-eaten by clouds. Kale sat across the fire from me, sharpening his blade more for distraction than need. I watched the sparks rise into the dark. Each one looked like a dying prayer. Finally, he broke the silence. I keep thinking about her, he said. About Arya. I didn't respond. She thought she was saving the world, he continued. She wasn't evil, not in the way the council will remember her. She was just broken, like me. You're not broken, Kyle. He smiled without warmth. Then why does everything I touch end in blood? I looked into the flames. Because you keep trying to save people who've already decided they're beyond saving. He lifted his gaze, meeting mine. Then what does that make you? Something between saved and damned, I whispered. He was quiet after that. The fire crackled between us, a fragile wall of warmth in a world that had forgotten the word. Hours later, when the flames had dwindled to embers, I felt it again. That pulse, the god dreaming. The world around me shimmered, fading like mist. The trees dissolved. The sky turned black and endless, pierced by threads of golden light. I wasn't asleep, but I wasn't awake either. Then I saw it, standing before me, the god. Not as a corpse or a whisper this time, but a shape carved from starlight and shadow, its face neither male nor female, its eyes bottomless voids. You've run far enough, it said, its voice echoing inside me. You can hide among wolves and fire, but you cannot unmake what you are. I stepped back. I didn't ask for this. You were never asked. You were made. Then unmake me, I spat. Take it back, the god smiled. A slow, terrible thing. Even gods cannot unmake their blood. I felt it move closer, its presence brushing against my soul like a storm wind. He loves you, it said. That is his weakness. Yours is believing it will save you. Leave him out of this, I growled. I cannot, it whispered, because he will choose you over the world. And when he does, I will rise through his grief. The world rippled, stars flickering out one by one. I gasped and woke up, choking on air. The fire had gone out. The forest was silent again. Kale was asleep beside me, his arm draped protectively across his sword. The god's voice lingered in my head like a poison I couldn't spit out. Every love ends the same, in sacrifice. I looked at Kyle, the rise and fall of his chest, the faint scar at his throat, the man who had walked through hell to bring me back, and I knew, deep down, what the god meant. If it woke again, it would use me to destroy everything. And Kale would never let that happen. Which meant one day soon, he'd have to kill me. I lay back against the cold earth, staring at the fading stars until dawn. listening to the heartbeat beneath my ribs that wasn't entirely mine. And somewhere in that endless quiet, the god sighed contentedly inside me. Sleep while you can, little wolf. When I dream again, the world will burn. Chapter 12. The last prayer of the Alpha King Dawn broke in shades of crimson, the color of endings. The forest stretched out before us, silent, emptied of birdsong. Every shadow felt like a memory, and every breath tasted of something that shouldn't have survived the night. Kale walked ahead, his shoulders tense, his cloak torn and damp. The Alpha King no longer looked like a ruler. He looked like a man who had bled too much, lost too much, and still refused to fall. I followed quietly, the weight of the god's heartbeat pulsing inside me like a drumbeat from the underworld. Each step felt borrowed, a gift the divine hadn't decided whether to take back yet. Where are we going? I asked softly. He didn't look back. To the ruins of the Eastern Shrine. It's the only place old enough to hide you from what's coming. I frowned. Hide me? He nodded once. If the god wakes again, it'll sense you first. The shrine is warded, older than any pack magic. It might give us time. Time for what? Kale's voice dropped low. To find a way to end it. Or to end you before it consumes you. The words cut deeper than his sword ever could. I swallowed the ache rising in my throat. You'll kill me then? When it asks. His steps faltered. For a moment the alpha mask cracked, and I saw the man beneath. Haunted, trembling, desperate. If that's what it takes to save you, he said, I'll do it. Save me. Not kill me. Even now he couldn't lie to himself. We walked until dusk. The world dimmed into blue, the air thick with the scent of rain. When we finally reached the shrine, it wasn't what I expected. It wasn't stone or marble. It was alive. A single, colossal tree stood in the center of an open field, its roots twisting across the ground like veins. Golden light leaked from its hollow heart, and whispers filled the air. Not words, but the echo of prayers that had outlived the mouths that spoke them. Kyle's eyes lifted to it with something between awe and grief. The first wolves prayed here, he murmured, before the gods named themselves our masters. And now it's just a tomb. The moment he stepped past the roots, the whispers changed. They recognized him. The air hummed with alpha blood, his legacy, his sin, his defiance. When I followed, the light dimmed. The roots trembled, curling away from my feet. They feared me, Kale noticed. It knows what's inside you. Good, I whispered. Then it knows why we're here. He turned toward me, the dying light catching the silver in his eyes. Lyris, if this doesn't work, if you feel it waking again, I'll tell you, I said quickly. He shook his head. You'll fight me. I know you, I smiled weakly. Then you better be ready to win. He didn't smile back. We reached the hollow of the tree. Inside, the air shimmered gold, heavy and ancient. The ground was covered in symbols, runes older than any language I'd ever seen. Kale knelt beside them, his fingers tracing each one like a prayer. These marks, he said quietly, bind power, not destroy it. But maybe, if you give it enough of yourself, the god will fall asleep for good. I stared at him. Enough of myself? He met my eyes, and I saw it. The truth he didn't want to say. It will take your life, Lyris. All of it. The wind howled through the tree, scattering golden dust like falling stars. I laughed softly, tears burning my eyes. So that's your plan? Bring me here to die? He rose to his feet. I brought you here to choose. Choose? He stepped closer, his voice trembling despite the steel in it. If you stay, you'll die, but the world will live. If you leave, it'll burn, and I'll have to kill you myself. I stared at him, heart splitting in my chest. And what about you? You'll just keep breathing after that? He looked away. I stopped breathing the night I threw you away. For a long moment, there was only silence. The sound of rain hitting the bark above us, the slow, steady thrum of the god inside me waiting. Then I took his hand. Then let's finish it together. His eyes snapped back to mine. No, I won't let you die for me again. I smiled faintly. You don't get to decide that anymore. Before he could stop me, I stepped into the center of the runes. The light surged beneath my feet, gold turning to white. The air vibrated, alive, burning, divine. The god woke. It roared through me like wildfire, clawing to be free. I screamed, every nerve ablaze. Kale lunged forward, but an invisible force threw him back against the wall of roots. "Lyris!" His voice broke. "Don't do this." The light poured from my skin, cracking through the air like lightning. I felt my heart beat slow. Not from fear, but surrender. The god's voice filled me once more, furious and pleading all at once. "You think you can end me with your heart?" I smiled through the tears. "No, with his." Kale's voice cut through the storm. "Then take it!" And before I could stop him, he tore open his palm, pressing it to the glowing ground. His blood hit the runes, alpha blood, royal blood, cursed blood, and the world exploded in light. The god screamed. I screamed. Kale fell to his knees beside me, his hand finding mine through the chaos. "Don't let go," he whispered. "I won't." The tree shuddered, roots curling inward, swallowing us in light. The god's voice fractured, rage turning to sorrow, power to dust. Then, silence. When the light faded, the forest was still again. The shrine no longer glowed. The roots had sealed, the runes burned away. Kale lay beside me, motionless. His hand still in mine, his chest barely rising. I turned toward him, weak, trembling. "Kale." He smiled faintly, blood staining his lips. "I told you. We'd finish it together." "No," I whispered, panic clawing at my throat. "No, no, no." His hand lifted weakly to touch my cheek. "You're free now. Don't waste it running from ghosts." Tears blurred everything. "Please," but he was already gone. The wind shifted, carrying his scent one last time. Smoke, pine, rain. The bond between us pulsed once, bright and sharp, then broke. The sound it made wasn't thunder. It was the quiet exhale of love dying. The god inside me stirred once more, its voice softer now. "He prayed for you." His prayer reached me. That is why I sleep. And I realized, in the hollow silence of the shrine, that Kale's sacrifice hadn't killed the god. It had tamed it through him, through love. The world outside began to brighten, dawn spilling gold across the ruins. I stood slowly, the wind wrapping around me like a whisper. The mark on my neck no longer burned. It glowed faintly, warm, alive, eternal. Kale's body lay beneath the roots, the shrine sealing around him like a guardian. The Alpha King's last prayer had been answered. The god would sleep. The world would live. But I would carry both their hearts forever, the divine and the damned. And somewhere beyond the veil of dawn, I swore I heard him whisper just once, "Run free, my Omega," like, subscribe and comment for part 2.